Chapter 4 Conspiracy. Danglars followed Edmond and Mercédès with his eyes until the two lovers disappeared behind one of the angles of Fort Saint-Nicolas. Then, turning round, he perceived Fernand, who had fallen, pale and trembling, into his chair, while Caderousse stammered out the words of a drinking song. "Well, my dear sir," said Danglars to Fernand, "here is a marriage which does not appear to make everybody happy." "It drives me to despair," said Fernand. "Do you, then, love Mercédès?" "I adore her." "For how long?" "As long as I have known her, always." "And you sit there, tearing your hair, instead of seeking to remedy your condition. I did not think that was the way of your people." "What would you have me do?" said Fernand. "How do I know? Is it my affair? I am not in love with Mademoiselle Mercédès. But for you, in the words of the gospel, seek, and you shall find." "I have found already." "What?" "I would stab the man. But the woman told me that if any misfortune happened to her betrothed, she would kill herself." "Pooh! Women say those things, but never do them. You do not know Mercédès. What she threatens, she will do." "Idiot!" muttered Danglars. "Whether she kill herself or not, what matter, provided Dantès is not captain?" "Before Mercédès should die," replied Fernand, with the accents of unshaken resolution, "I would die myself." So, just picking up right where we left off, there are bad things afoot. Speaking of which, I have a bad foot since I stubbed my toe this morning, and it is killing me. And speaking of killing, Fernand ready to do a murder if he could, but dares not because of what Mercédès said, and he believes her. Danglars, though, he doesn't care. His whole thing is whatever needs to transpire in order for Dantès to not become captain. So, I don't think it's been explicitly stated yet that does Danglars want to be captain himself? I'm assuming that's his end game, but we don't really know. And Caderousse just playing along, singing a song, side by side. Is that how that goes? My pronunciations of these names are just all over the place. I recognize that. I'm sorry, folks. We're just going to have to deal with it. It's a lot of episodes to have to go back and re-record. But I learned that I've been putting an extra vowel sound in Caderousse when I believe it's just Caderousse. Maybe not even with that emphasis because I'm, a doofus. Anyway, a little bit of research here. We talked about wanting to get a little more like texture to this world that they're living in. These layers which readers of the time probably would have known, but we 210 years later have kind of lost. Dumas referenced Fort Saint-Nicolas, spelled Fort Saint Nicholas. I found this interesting, was a military fortress in Marseille, built by King Louis. But apparently this fort, which is, forts are usually meant for defense against external threats. This was more to like intimidate the local population. This was a representation of oppression and like think of Big Brother, like King Louis saying, "We got our eyes on you, so like stay in check, folks. Do not get out of hand." Which also leads to the kind of I've been doing Napoleonic research. My co-host of my other podcast would be proud. So like, okay, and I swear I'm going to bring this all together in just a second, but the political climate in France at this time, as we're saying, a lot of stuff, a letter, a package. Dantès goes to the island of Elba at the behest of Captain Leclerc, who is now dead. Information is being passed back and forth. We are dealing with a conspiracy, maybe. It's the name of the fucking chapter we're talking at here. What's going on politically is that Napoleon apparently is getting ready. He's exiled on this island of Elba, and he's getting ready for his return. And so that is making for a very delicate situation, a very precarious situation between Napoleon and King Louis. I don't know the full details of that. I'm not an expert. I'm not a historian. I'm learning as we go along. But we asked a little while ago about Dumas' perspective of Napoleon. Is this a chill dude? Is this, a despot dictator that we need to condemn? A little bit of both, maybe. I don't have the answers to that yet, but what we're seeing here as this is starting to paint a backdrop is we've got movements in terms of like, how do we get information, potential Napoleonic information from the island of Elba to someone in Paris. Maybe we don't really have all the details of that yet. But what we've got essentially is these letters and information being transported between parties. Is Napoleon really involved, or was he just a byproduct? I'm going to assume, since we're, writing a story, it's not just a coincidence that he's here. But also, like, we've got the more subtly oppressive representation and symbolism of King Louis. So if I were to wage my bets on where Dumas feels our sympathies should lie, it might be with Napoleon here. I'm going to be personally curious to see how that shapes up as we go along through this. We might need to educate ourselves a little bit. So that's all I got for this a little bit longer of an episode. Let's continue in chapter 4 with this conversation between Danglars, Fernand, and Caderousse, just singing a song, a little drunken song. Shall we? Let's shall. See you tomorrow. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.